Welcome to a brand new decade of Common Filth Radio. We are living in the 80s and things are looking fine. It's a dead cat bounce because a lot of bad stuff happened in the 60s and 70s, and we're in the shell-shocked period. We're going to have lots of meaningless sex, we're going to do a lot of cocaine, and then once we're in the 90s, once Common Filth Radio is in the 90s, we're going to go through our angry, frigid lesbian with an acoustic guitar phase. You know, that's if we don't go whiny grunge band. We don't take that path. But we have 10 episodes before we have to worry about that. Right now is Common Filth Radio episode 80. Thank you very much for listening. Common Filth Extra episode 14 is out now. It is free this week. Once again, a few weeks back I gave an episode away for free. I did not have as much time to record this one, but it is still good stuff. And of course, you can pay if you want to. So what do you want me to talk about? I have 5 different things I could talk about right now. 5 different tabs that have nothing to do with questions and answers, comments, whatever. So a lot of people tell me the show's too negative, the show is too triggering. And that's fine. We do deal with some heavy subject matter, but it's going to exist regardless of whether I'm here to put it into context or not. In the years leading up to this, I would see stories all the time. Really, really ugly things happening in the world, and everybody either saying, well, it's no big deal, or it doesn't affect you, it doesn't mean anything, this is only a small group of psychos, or, it's actually a good thing. What's wrong with expressing yourself? In the years leading up to it, that's all I would hear. And I got sick of it. I got real sick of it. And I still think that those feelings I felt back then with regard to how people reacted to certain social trends, they stay with me. They motivate the words I put to record. The words I record on a weekly basis, they stay with me. So, what do you want me to do? I mean, I could talk about pop culture and consumerist nonsense, which, I engage in like everybody else, but I'll explain to you why I don't focus on the stuff that I actually enjoy, why I don't go in depth on topics I enjoy. Because I think it's enough to have these things at my disposal. I think it's good enough that I have the free time to watch a movie, play a game, listen to a record, whatever it is. I let that be good. And I have nothing against people that like to talk about comic books, games, movies, television, wrestling, whatever it is. I don't have anything against that. I like to see what people think about pop culture. I like to see what people's attitudes are towards it. I have nothing against that, but for me, what I do, I feel incredibly uncomfortable talking about that stuff because it feels decadent to me. Because I already have the free time, disposable income to enjoy this kind of stuff. I know a lot of you out there would like to hear me shoot the breeze and just take it light for once. And I think I do that within each episode in a small way. I just don't go on for 2 hours about how life is awesome because that's irresponsible. And you take comfort in that, I get it. But I wouldn't feel comfortable making a show like that. So if I'm not comfortable, you're not comfortable. And here's something that makes everybody uncomfortable. This is about sex work. Can you imagine that? I'm not a whore, Dad. I'm a sex worker. I've been thinking about doing a episode of Tumblristas about it, and that's what I intend to do on Thursday. But some of this stuff is so gross that I couldn't put it in. Some of this stuff is so gross I couldn't read it out loud. I posted something to my Twitter about it, about foreskins and I shouldn't have to deal with this, sex work problems, blah blah blah. It's really gross. But here's one. And this is from some chick's Tumblr blog. Anonymous asked, "Is your boyfriend okay with you being a literal whore?" And she responds, "Oh boy, I haven't gotten this kind of hate in a while." And she probably sent it to herself just to have something to bitch about. She says, "First of all, I'm in porn and camming. I'm not a FSSW. I don't know what that means, by the way." And she says after that, "Also, whore is a slur. Don't come into my inbox throwing that shit around." Secondly, I've already talked to my boyfriend about doing FSSW, and he doesn't even care. I'm assuming that FSSW is something about how you actually go and walk the streets, or you know, do something. Prostitution. I mean, she's doing prostitution already, but it's splitting hairs, I know. So secondly, I've talked to my boyfriend. I've talked to my boyfriend about doing this, like real whoring, and he doesn't even care. He knows sex work is my job, and that it's not a personal thing. In fact, he's expressed interest in making videos with me for my ManyVids account when I get that up and running. And his dick is so bomb, like the best dick I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. So like, yeah. So you're not a whore, but you've seen a lot of dicks. Okay. Alright, fine. You have it your way. I've said this a lot lately, but it bears repeating. How somebody expresses themselves sexually tells you everything you need to know about where their mind, body, and soul is located. Where they're coming from. And where is she coming from? What's her mind, body, and spirit doing? Let me ask you a question. And through this question, we'll arrive at an answer. Is the building block of civilization, the bedrock of foundation, is it prostitution, is it whoring, or is it the family? Is it masturbation, or is it procreation? Remember that one autistic comment we read some months back about how all relationships are transactional and there's no difference between marriage and prostitution? That was something that somebody said. I don't know who said it. It's probably on some subreddit. You can go back at something I mentioned before. And I countered with this. Are you more comfortable spending time around somebody that pays for whores? Or are you more comfortable around your grandparents who've been married? You know, assuming that they are still married. And it doesn't even have to be your grandparents. It doesn't have to be them. It can be anybody. It can be any man and a woman who are married and have kids. Any man and woman who are married. You'll feel far better about spending time with them because you know they're doing the right things for the right reasons. They're doing a productive activity. They're expressing themselves within the context, the only context that it should be expressed within. Have you ever encountered a guy who pays for prostitutes? Have you ever been around those types of people? I've seen them like trailing these very flashily dressed women. Dressed very flashy. I don't even know if flashily is a word. But yeah, they're all dressed flashy. They're in like these gold short pants, and they're in their stockings. And you know, in rough parts of town, at weird parts at night, and you're driving through, and you see these guys with them. They look like the worst scumfucks you could possibly imagine. People who belong in a mental hospital. People who belong on a chain gang breaking rocks at the side of the freeway. Let's give a more on-the-nose example. Let's take a moment to imagine the kind of person who pays for the services of a cam whore. Now, this is more difficult because these people who pay for this stuff, they don't get out of the house too often. So it's more difficult to imagine it in our mind's eye. But we can imagine that they're lonely and desperate and aren't very good conversationalists. If they stood behind you at the gas station, you'd probably be uncomfortable. Squirrely little fucks they most likely are. So, I don't know where I'm going with that. Just something I've been dealing with, something I've encountered. The fact that sex work is something in our cultural vernacular. It's disturbing. Unless, of course, you're some autistic guy that thinks, man and woman been married 40 years, the same thing as a guy paying for hookers. So, we're going to read this. And I'm just going to read it straight up. I'll tell you what it's from, where it's from, after I read it. So, I'm now quoting. I came out to my mother tonight. It did not go so well. She approached me and asked me how I saw myself in the future in terms of friends, because she was worried about my social life and how I only kept in constant contact with 4 people I know very well from high school. So I replied that I felt okay with just knowing a few people. She also wondered if I saw myself with a girlfriend. At this point, I'd portrayed myself as an asexual, stating that I felt nothing for boys or girls. And that is what I told her now. She then recommended that I start looking into volunteer work, both so that I can gain more credibility in a resume for employment, and so I can meet new people and perhaps find new friends. This I took as a huge play for me to find a girlfriend because, again, she's been paying closer attention to my social life and comparing it to my brother, who's always gone out with friends and never there with the family. And never there with the family. Oh, okay. So the bird has flown the nest a little bit. I understand. But I told her what she was saying was reasonable and that I'd be okay to volunteer for something. And then she started talking about the pendulum had started to turn the other way. In primary school, I was so friendly and eager to please whoever I met. I was outgoing and showed my feelings clearly, but now I seemed less empathetic and mistrustful of others, even though nothing bad had really happened to me. I agreed that I, too, had noticed this, and while I didn't show how I felt as much as I used to, I still felt things deeply. But as she pressured this into why I never had a girlfriend, I began to see an opportunity. She was sounding so earnest and heartfelt that it may have been the perfect moment to tell her. And so I said, okay, fuck it. Mom, I'm a zoophile. Hindsight is a powerful thing. What? A zoophile. I told her that I felt an emotional and physical attraction to non-human animals without specifying which species, and without actively saying that I can find them arousing, which is another thing I'm glad of in hindsight. Wait, you said you have physical attraction to them? Isn't that... Oh, you just told her physical attraction to non-human animals. Death. You are death. And there's more. There is more. She was very shocked and confused, and as I explained her shock and confusion only grew deeper. She wondered if I was talking about furries, then suggested that I was projecting my feelings onto animals, because maybe I'd been rejected by one too many girls. Well, you're already jumping to the conclusion. You probably look at a pretty girl and your heart goes aflutter when you look at her because you're like, wow, she's really pretty. She can carry on life. She's fit for the species. And then you reflect that back onto yourself and you're like, oh man, I'm not worthy of that. I'm a big piece of shit. So instead of bettering yourself, you decide, oh no, I'm sexually attracted to animals because an animal can't know I'm a big fat fucking piece of shit. You know, an animal doesn't make any judgments. They make judgments after the fact. Remember we read that sheep story about the German sheep farmer noticing that some guy was breaking into his barn and fucking the sheep, and how he figured this out because the sheep started acting timid and afraid of humans. They started behaving differently around humans because something very vile happened to them at the hands of one. So even animals know this is wrong. Even animals know this is not how things are supposed to be. Even an animal knows. Even an animal. Despite all the weird stuff animals are capable of, they know. Where did I leave off? Yeah, maybe I'd been rejected by one too many girls, but I rejected everything and told her that I was who I was, but I had no intention of actually doing the act. Yeah, you did. You said you have physical attraction towards animals, which is biologically incompatible. Which, by the way, we accept certain other biologically incompatible behaviors as perfectly valid and helpful and good and healthy. You know, it's mostly Europeans, Western and Northern Europeans, but, you know, everything's racial up until you get to that. Then it's the Jews, right? You know, it's like I said, they're a merchant class, right? You could sell somebody a product, right? You could offer something for sale, but if nobody's buying, then you're getting nowhere. You're getting nowhere. So there's more, by the way, to this. This confused her most of all, and I think it was both the nail in the coffin and my saving grace. See, I told her that I realized that I was a zoosexual at 15, and she reasoned that because I was having an emotional low that year, I was transferring my feelings onto other animals. Correct. You are a worm. You are a little piece of shit. You have accomplished nothing in life, and you know it, and you feel depressed because of that. That's good. That's good. You maybe you'd start working towards something if you feel like that. But no, I'm gonna work towards being a dog fucker, a sheep fucker. That's what you are. Continuing. And since I had said I had no intention of actually having sex with one, she was convinced that I was mislabeling myself and that I was searching for identity without realizing its meaning. Again, correct. Your mom sounds like a pretty smart lady. She sounds like a woman who has a very realistic outlook on human nature. I'm noticing a theme here. Women with males in their lives who are pieces of shit when the women probably aren't so bad. I'm noticing a trend here. We heard it in the r/cuckold episode of Common Filth Extra, and we're looking at it here. This woman is right. The mother of this idiot is right. She's putting it perfectly. But we'll continue. And when she argued that animals are not rational beings and that you can never have a whole relationship with an animal, I knew I was at a crossroads. If I'd argued against her, there was no going back, and I'd have to say that I found some to be arousing. Since she clearly stated that if I have sexual feelings for them, then there was something wrong with me, I gave in. I faked an emotional breakdown and conceded defeat. I was searching for identity where I felt I had none. So now I know. I know she can't be reasoned with. Really? She can't be reasoned with. She can't be reasoned with? She can't be reasoned with. Let me tell you something. This woman is in the 99th percentile of reasonable women. And go figure that she's a mom. It's almost like these things are connected, kind of. I'm not saying it's a guarantee because there are a lot of piece of shit mothers out there, single moms, mothers who encourage their children to inject hormones because my kid is trans and I need Facebook likes from my loser friends, my loser enabling friends. There's a lot of moms out there like that, but this one's one of the good ones, and she has a zoophile child. A dog fucker. Bestiality. I faked an emotional breakdown. Okay. She can't be reasoned with. She can't be reasoned with unless I want my regular life to come crashing down. But I also know I don't love her less because of our differences. Oh, I'd love you a whole lot less, you shit. You maggot. Still, I've opened up to her and I know there's no turning back from the consequences. Fuck. I'm not sure I handled this well, so I'm posting this to share my story. I also want to clear some things up. I'm confident that I am a zoo. I could reason for almost any argument against. Oh my goodness. I can reason for almost any argument against zoophilia. Although I have no intention of doing the act, I am certain I'm sexually attracted to non-human animals. And years later, we'll read about you. You will read about you. And let's see all the enablers here. And this is from, by the way, I said I'd mention where this is from. This is from r/zoophilia. This is a subreddit with over 2,700 subscribers. Great. And there's some stuff in their side panel here. Rules. No doxing, okay. Search posts before you make them. Post explicitly about sex or sexual acts must be marked not safe for work. We have elected to keep this a safe for work Reddit subreddit, but you must hold up your end of the bargain. No cruelty towards or abuse of anally violating an animal is an abusive. What kind of world do I live in? What kind of world do I live in where the humanity I share, some segments of it, we're still humans, I live on the same earth as them, and some segments of humanity live by this standard that says anally raping an animal, that's not abusive. Or violating an animal in any kind of way. I'm sure there's more than one way to do it. As these people, without a doubt, they know. Don't post bestiality porn. Please post it. Wait for it. Please post it to r/bestiality. I'm not clicking on that. As much as I want to know how many people subscribe to that. How is this legal? How is this allowed to operate? This isn't against their terms of service or, I don't know, law. The law where these servers are located. If you have romantic stories or media romantic stories are media, romantic media, you have a bad definition of romance. What's your definition of romance? I'm going to take my dog to candlelight dinner, and then we're going to make a romantic love tape. I just gave myself the chills saying that. You know what? I don't. Just get into the mind of one of these people, and you'll see hell. This must be what Satan rules over. Oh yeah, who's the prince of this world? Oh, but God's not real. Okay, great. Then what is the recoil you feel right now as I'm reading this? Where does that come from? I mean, if there is no God, then everything's fine. But God's trying to speak to you. As you feel this recoil, this cringe, whatever you want to call it, that's not a social construct. That is not socially constructed. It's not real. As we can see, right and wrong, the standards of right and wrong as defined by humans. No cruelty towards abuse of animals, but having sex with them is okay. That's human standard. You know, the day will come where you will have to answer for that, and you won't be able to. So bye-bye, thanks for playing. To hell with you. But in the meantime, we have to live with it. It's not like this stuff happens in a vacuum. It's not like this stuff is just like, oh, you can do this and still be like this. Nope. The nature of sin is progressive. It leads from one thing to the other. And it will. It is an inevitability. People are extreme creatures. And once left in isolation, extreme isolation, this is what they do. Same goes with any sort of abomination. r/animal romance. High quality images of photogenic equines are greatly appreciated at r/fine horses. Think about it. You're a normal person. Maybe you own a ranch or a farm, and you got a few horses, and you like to ride them, and they're nice. They're very beautiful creatures. They're very cool looking. You like to take a picture of it, and you're like, wow, fine horses. I'm gonna post pictures of my beloved horse to r/fine horses, and this is the audience that it finds. An audience of the sickest people alive. Sick, ill, diseased. Masturbating to pictures of your horses. Animal romance. Animal romance. Animal romance. Words. Yet another pairing of words I never thought I'd say. But the culture I live in finds it necessary to put those two things together. And now I scroll down the page and I find this. From the original poster here. Says, I think I handled it well too, but handling it well and faking an emotional breakdown doesn't stop you from finding out your mother has recently downloaded a PDF on the sexual behavior of autistic children. It's really comforting to know that anything odd with me is blamed on the autism. Really comforting. Well, really comforting. Look, it is. You're insane. You're born without intuition. You know, I think that's what, autism is. People are a little bit off when it comes to that, but when it comes to this, and here's what he was responding to. This is similar to what happened to me, only I did not back down and my life was ruined for it. It's hard. I know knowing your parents will never accept you for what you really are. Yeah, I wouldn't want to accept my kid if my kid was a psycho either. That's ridiculous. You have to accept me. It's who I am. No, I don't. Get bent. But believe me when I say if it's going to go bad, it beats the alternative. I think you may not know this yet, but you handled it well. And then the same person, the same enabling psycho, says, I believe, falsely diagnosed with autism. Well, if you believe yourself to be sexually compatible with a goat or any other animal, yeah, you do have it. And technically at the time, Asperger's around the same time. So I can relate. It's not easy, but it is what it is. I'm noticing a common thread here. A common thread amongst people who are like, oh, I'm gay, I'm trans, I'm lesbian, I'm a zoo. They're always on the autism spectrum. Like, it's got to be more than 50%. And I've said this recently. I said this recently that I think that 50% of people have autism. Maybe 50%, I should narrow that down. Yeah, I'll narrow that down. 50% of people in the English-speaking world, autism. That's for the general population, but those who are into this sexual weirdness, this constant sexual weirdness, those that define themselves by it, I don't think it's more than 50%. I think it's closer to like 100%. And I'm not backing down from that. That's my Alamo. What's your Alamo? I said I was zoosexual or zoophilia or zoophile. I'm not backing down from that. Yeah, great boundaries you have there. Really, really awe-inspiring. A source of pride for everyone. So I think that's enough for animal rape autism. How about a different kind of autism? Caitlyn Jenner gets her first vibrator since becoming a woman and nicknames it Vroom Vroom. Are you gagging yet? Are you feeling that gag reflex? Do you feel the bile? Do you feel the bile churning? Do you feel it bubbling up and coming up your esophagus? Doesn't it feel good? The reality show star got to grips with the sex toy on her program. I am Kate. I'm Kate. The reality star, formerly known as Olympian Bruce Jenner. You go from Olympian to tranny. Hey, it is emblematic of where we are as a nation. The reality star, formerly known as Olympian Bruce Jenner, underwent gender reassignment surgery last year, and viewers of her show will see her getting the lowdown on the kinky bedroom gadget. In the latest episode of I Am Kate, screened on E!, the parent of catwalk hotties Kylie and Kendall Jenner reveals she is learning so much during a kinky chat with her mates. Viewers will see Caitlyn, 66 years old, receiving a special parcel, which they promise is better than diamonds. They whip out the bright pink gadget from its box as she remarks, "It's a vroom vroom." Just take a moment, breathe, digest it, reflect, and retch. I'm going to keep reading this. These are the seeds we have sown, and as you sow, so shall you reap. Viewers see her giving it a squeeze and studying it before passing it back to her pals, including Candace Kane, who then rubs the vibrator around her mouth as they burst into laughter. Yeah, that's a great bonding moment. It's great. It's really nice. It's life-inspiring. It doesn't make me want to die or anything. The former Keeping Up with the Kardashians star, who used to be married to Kris Jenner, has revealed she will now be setting her sights on men, as she doesn't think women would find her stomach, pains, hurting. I'm moving on, for the wages of sin is death. That's the conclusion of that. And the introduction to this one is the wages of sin is death. Tequila-swigging Madonna has second onstage meltdown over Rocco custody battle as she brands ex-husband Guy Ritchie a son of a bitch and begs someone, please fuck me. Yeah, that's a great and dignified way to invite your declining relevance and your increasing age. it's pathetic. Why do these ladies go out there and strut their shit like they're still 25? It's gross. Age with some dignity. Is it really that difficult? Is it that difficult to settle down, take care of your kids, actually stay with the guy you laid down with and made these kids? You know, it takes two to tango. You know, these kids just don't, they're not like pimples. No, that's too hard. No, that's uncomfortable and icky. No, going around and prancing around like a whore in front of large paying audiences like you're still 25, that's much more dignified, right? It's pathetic. What else? What else do I have? Oh yeah, Trans Youth Equality Foundation. I was on Kickstarter. I found it through there. Trans Youth Equality Foundation provides education, advocacy, support for transgender and gender nonconforming children and youth and their families. You know, it writes itself. What more can I say? What else do they have on the website? They have a podcast, by the way, that they got $4,400 to make. That's how I found their website. Their Kickstarter project got that much money, and in like 3 years they've done like 13 episodes or something. Some very hard-earned, well-earned money. It's being well spent. I'm sure it's not completely self-serving and dead-end. And by the way, here's another one. LAPD's, Los Angeles Police Department's first openly gay officer charged in domestic violence case. Oh, I am shocked that a member of the gay community is prone to domestic violence. I've never heard of this. This comes as a complete shock. I thought these were cool and charming people who wear Make America Great Again hats and they post fashy memes. Hashtag coming out fash. Let's learn about Greek and Roman traditions, everyone. So this is from cbslocal.com, Los Angeles. The police department, LA Police Department's first openly gay officer, will make his first court appearance Tuesday on domestic violence charges. Look what we're capable of. Retired Sergeant Mitchell Grobison, 57, was arrested Friday after a nearly 4-hour standoff inside a, wait for it, West Hollywood home before he surrendered to a sheriff's SWAT team. Well, that's highly homophobic. They're entrapping these innocent people, these innocent natural aristocrats in their own homes, their own communities. This is a great injustice, and they should riot. They should have another Stonewall riot over this. How dare you? They're beyond reproach. All natural aristocrats are, and who am I to argue? I'm just some lumpen prole. More. Grobison is being held on a $250,000 bail on suspicion of corporal injury to a spouse, according to a statement from the LA County Sheriff's Department. Spouse. What a sick, fucked up world we live in. He was charged with assault with a firearm and criminal threats stemming from a domestic dispute with his husband that led to Friday's standoff. And this has nothing to do with anything. You can ignore it. It's all satire. I don't actually mean anything I say. It's all a big joke, so you can send me your anime pictures. It's fine. You can do that. I'll laugh at it. I actually secretly get aroused to that stuff. I don't find it gross at all. So, just ignore this part. This is just me playing a character, right? I knew girls in college, like neighbors, classmates, and all this stuff, who would talk openly like it was nothing about their experiences in depravity and deviance, their experimentations. They get their warped ideas of sexuality from movies and TV. You gotta experiment in college, it's what you do. One thing after another. From both males and females, by the way. This all came as a pretty big surprise to me. I lived a lot of my life inside my own head. I've always preferred my own company above the company of others. Just how I've been. For most of my life, I've been content to view things on my own terms, through my own lens, through my own pair of eyes. And I'm nice to people. I'm pretty agreeable over the short term. But I'm easily annoyed with others over the long term when I find out just how uninteresting they are. Just how uninteresting people are. If they're interesting, they're usually conflicted, very schizophrenic in their views on life. And I don't know why this is exactly. But, once I escaped from the short-sightedness of youth, I guess you'd call it the solipsism, I learned that a lot of people out there live their lives in a drugged-up haze. A lot of people say, why do you talk shit about marijuana and not the pharmaceutical industry? I do. You just don't hear that part because it doesn't hit home. It hits nowhere near home. But when I criticize weed, when I criticize that, you hear it. You hear it because it's a stab right in your heart. I get it. But so many people out there, they live their lives all drugged up, their mind's eye clouded by marijuana smoke. Their capacity is limited by drugs ingested in their youth, prescribed by the surrogate single mothers, known as teachers and school administrators. Great job they do. Very good. I mean, who needs parents? We could have teachers raise our kids, right? Yeah. They do a great job. And I thank God every day that I avoided that fate. I know and I've experienced the full spectrum of feelings, of emotions. I know the wordless pains and beauties that the world is capable of. I'm not doomed to a life of spreadsheet thinking, beep, boop, beep, 101, like so many people are. I'm not doomed to emotional retardation, spiritual retardation. An emotional and spiritual retardation that informs the social judgments so many of us make, the intuition, that gut feeling. But you can't put it on a spreadsheet, so nobody really cares. You can't quantify it. And because of that, people deny such a thing is even real, that such a thing even exists. And this might be due to the fact that everybody's on pharmaceuticals and marijuana. Too many of us are concerned only with how nice a person is, how nice they might be. Most people are nice if your interaction with them is limited to just casual interaction. Most people are nice if the relationships you develop with them, if they have the emotional depth of a bathtub. Most people are nice if things just remain puddle deep. Go ahead. Try to explore any topic that doesn't relate to pop culture or something else of limited or no consequence, and see how people react. Take note of their reaction. Become passionate about anything that doesn't involve matters of consumerism. In other words, allow yourself to feel something, anything about matters of actual consequence. Do this. Take note. The reactions you receive. People, they'll become so unbearably uncomfortable because they now face a mirror. They see themselves in and the stupid things they value. Because it's right up there. You broke through the marijuana smoke and the pharmaceutical haze. They feel discomfort racing through their nervous system. And it might be the first time in forever that they feel this. Who knows if they've felt it at all, ever. When they feel social, spiritual, emotional discomfort, whatever you want to call it, they can't put a name to it. But I can. And you know what that name is? That name is truth. Truth. But they learn to call it hate. They assume that any emotion other than utter vacancy or mild amusement or comfort is hatred. This is just one of many ways in which the social orthodoxy is enforced. Emotional invalids make global decisions informed by the panic they feel when their vacancy is confronted. I think they know their apathy is unsustainable. Their vacancy, I think they know that. I think they know if everyone acted like them, there would exist no civilization that would tolerate them, that would enable their existence. There would exist no civilization that would find a role for them to play, no matter how frivolous. And it usually is frivolous. Let's be honest with ourselves. How many marketing directors, social media managers do we need? Do we need them at all? So now that I just said all that stuff that I didn't really mean, and it's all a big joke, I don't actually believe in anything. Don't worry, I drink a lot of soda, I play a lot of video games, I like memes, and all this stuff keeps me distracted, and it's nice. I live a very nice life that I don't have any wrong think opinions. Don't get that idea. Nope, none at all. So we'll do Reddit questions and we'll do emails. So here we go. This isn't anything that you would be surprised by, but several days ago I overheard some Vine compilation tier retardation offline. Some short-haired fetal alcohol syndrome-looking girl was recounting a likely fake encounter with a misgendering bigot and how she had a witty penis comeback. Just one more, it's only a Tumblr/internet thing moment. Yeah, it's everywhere. When people just say, "Oh, it's Tumblr," they're looking for a shield to deflect their accusations off of. They aren't looking at what's behind that shield. And what's behind that shield is, well, our natural aristocracy. You see, Tumblr wouldn't exist if these impulses didn't exist. These people trying to win brownie points with our natural aristocracy. It's sick. And it's sick, and we have to realize who's responsible. And I realize at a certain point we're responsible because it's our children. Our children, our siblings, our cousins, everyone. It's us. We buy the bullshit they're selling. And, maybe there's a genetic component to it, but again, it's much easier to blame external forces, right? And look, I think that, I used to be of this sort of determinist mindset, but you know what? I think that humans are the only creature that rebels, and we're also the only creature that can fix itself, that can control our impulses. And there are examples of people that have done just that. So, there you go. Also, in regards to the stupid Catholic approach to sex, I think I can bring some aspects to light. As with nearly everything, the RCC was greatly affected by the social upheavals of the 60s and 70s, free love and the like. The answer was something called theology of the body. While there were some good points brought up, it is largely a crock of shit, a message to the world saying, look, we can have fun too. Winking and saying, just make sure your seed ends up in the right place at the end of the night. This is a massive departure from centuries of what very nearly accounts to missionary position in the dark for the sole purpose of procreation. I think this illustrates the foremost problem with the Catholic Church, and indeed nearly all contemporary churches, a failure to set oneself apart from the world, from the crowd, from, as you say, inherently flawed man. I don't really intend to convert you or anything. Hell, I know that if I wasn't raised into the faith, I would take a very visceral glance and never look back. I would recommend checking out a summary of Soren Kierkegaard's writings. I know I butchered that, but look, I read some of the stuff, but their names, so I don't feel like looking up the pronunciations of them, so yeah, my apologies. You may relate. He was an eccentric 19th century Dane who made some brilliant observations. In particular, he railed against the Danish state church, which served as an arm of the secular government and paid little tribute to God, much like churches today bow before man's ideals and not Christ the King. Yeah, I think most of the churches of these European nations, same thing. Like the Church of Sweden I read about, I think like 9 out of 10 of them don't actually believe in Christ. It's sick. So yeah, it's just another secularist wing of the government that can. It's basically like the college girl who says like, I'm spiritual but not religious, except that it's an institution. So yeah, thanks for the comment. These are my favorite kinds of comments. I love ambience. It influences me the most, and I can't be everywhere at all times. But, I have an audience. I have a very perceptive audience. I have an audience that encounters things that I talk about while they're, a fly on the wall, for lack of a better term. And I think in those moments, you get a lot of truth. You get a good idea of where people are, where we are as a culture. So, again, excellent comment, my favorite kind. Next. Hello, Common Filth. I'd like to thank you for reading my comment and question last thread. Originally, I wrote an incredibly long wall of text reacting to several things you said about Catholicism and Orthodoxy, but after a day, I've cooled off and edited my original comment out of consideration for others with comments or questions. Besides, there are other people more qualified, and talented to speak to you about anything you might want to know regarding Orthodoxy and Catholicism. I trust in God that He'll guide you to where you need to be, the way He has guided you to where you are. But there are also many other things which Jesus did, which if they were written everyone, the world itself, I think, would not be able to contain the books that should be written. John 21:25. And now for my question. Do you sing? I ask you this because I notice you sound a lot like the vocalist from this group. Yeah, I do, but my vocal range is incredibly limited, unfortunately. I'd like to sing higher, but I can't. Maybe if I worked at it. It's like a muscle, isn't it? Like Is that a thing, or are you born with the vocal range you have? I don't know. I should look into that. I don't know too much about it. But, if it's like a muscle, yeah, I'd probably sing more if my practice paid off. Also, I remember you were a guest at a certain alt-right podcast with some guy who sounded like Seth Rogen. I thought, hey, that's Common Filth. Awesome. You ever heard of the Facebook page, fuck you, Seth Rogen, dumb motherfucker? You dumb motherfucker? Based on the, just replace Seth Rogen with Obama. I think that was the original page. That was really funny. So, next. Hey CF, here with not so much a direct question as a very long rant that I hope will serve as a launch pad for your thoughts on the topic. When the break first occurred between you and them, I recognized your criticism of the alt-right with regards to the natural aristocrats as having rustled all the right jimmies, and it's only proven more and more accurate over time. I've still stuck around the TRS milieu, because I do still care about saving the white race from outside threats, as well as the internal evils you seem effectively alone in properly documenting and forming a coherent counter-narrative to. And because a lot of the people there are undeniably clever and come across as men of goodwill. There's been a relative proliferation of anti-LGBT views, and there was some form drama where a natural aristocrat who had been made mod was exposed as the unbalanced demon he was, such that Seventh Son himself had to recoil the same way most people do when they see your masterful Vine compilations. There was also a Common Filth was right again post in that thread that got a ton of upvotes, so take all of that as you will. Unfortunately, in my travels in the Big Tent alt-right, I feel like there's a population with similar corrosive influence that's as compulsively dishonest and anti-moral, the neo-pagans, most of who align with the original mysticist bullshit of the Nazis, and that broader cargo cult of edginess. I think they might actually be worse than homosexuals in terms of dragging down the movements that want to save the white race. At best, all their beliefs can be is schizophrenic delusions. If they are in any way honest, because of the metaphysics of these dead, pre-civilizational superstitions make no sense, and the historiography of the whole identity and the culture of Europe, aka my white race, makes no sense without at least an acknowledgement of Christianity as being what gelled these different tribes and set the tone of the whole civilization. Atheism is more widely discussed and understood, both because it's prevalent and also because atheists, for the most part, tend to have at least a declared desire to make their system work rationally in the abstract and become influential in real life because they believe it'll make society better, in the same way autistic free marketers think individual economic rationalism in the aggregate will make society good without a requirement for moral leadership. Just the implementation of a magic formula or of the perfect rational system. I don't want to talk about atheism all that much because most of us understand the deal with it, and it's not the object of my complaint, and because in my experience most right-wing atheists are arguing in good faith, not a pun, with what is uncharitably referred to as autistic reasoning and not just being fuck you mom and dad, I'm not going to church, degenerates looking for an excuse for their behavior. My experience in arguing with people who call themselves neo-pagans, the majority of whom are not arguing in good faith, the portion who are properly belonging in an asylum, has been the opposite to my experience with atheists. Apart from the argumentative inconsistencies of presenting oneself as an advocate of a civilization with a Christian fundament, while at the same time defining oneself entirely in opposition to Christianity, pagans come across as bitter, resentful people with a great deal of internal confusion who have latched onto this hidden secret truth of the universe in the same way flat earthers, natural aristocrats, and Jews, with their persecution complexes, hide their weaknesses from themselves by constructing this kind of insulated, self-reinforcing circle jerk feedback loop where everyone else is a sheeple, furries are disgusting by the way, a repressed homophobe, an irrational anti-Semite, or in the case of these pagans who opposed to the superior culture and legitimate tradition of Christianity, a regressive blue-pilled beta who worship Jews and sides with, insert non-white epithet here, over their racial kin. Apart from the paranoid people who take these anti-traditional traditions seriously, and you put them in, I'm not saying quote unquote when you use them, but if you all want to read along with me here, question comment thread for Common Filth Radio episode 80, number 80, on r/Common Filth Reddit. Apart from the paranoid people who take these anti-traditional traditions seriously, the whole neo-pagan movement also seems to serve as a platform for atheists with a resentment of Christianity, usually for its restrictions on degenerate sexuality and hating the other intrinsically, who have seen the writing on the wall when it comes to atheism's utility as an intellectual justification for whatever evil they personally benefit from. Most people who explore the beyond-the-pale rightist opposition to leftism have encountered materialistic scientific explanations and justifications for Christianity's social prescriptions, and role in European history. And so these people fall back to an unfalsifiable rationalization for their particular beefs with what traditional Christianity prescribes for society, that of tradition. The neo-pagan argument for their worldview of modernism and cosplay rests on a false historiography of Christianity as a Jewish plot to enslave the Aryans that, even if true, would undercut their own claim to their disguised modernism as being a restoration of an authentic white identity, given how thoroughly the collective identity of whiteness owes its formation to Judaism for goys, and how thoroughly actual pagan beliefs/practice/worldview have been eroded by said Semitic religion. If the chain of tradition has been broken so thoroughly for so long, any attempt to revive the shibboleth superstitions of past millennia is not actually a restoration of tradition, even if the content of the belief system were the same as those of actual pagans of the past. I've said all this stuff before in argument with neo-pagans, and I've not got any better response than strawman characterizations of Christianity based on the heretical modernist, Jew-worshipping, low-church U.S. televangelism, or the secularly driven cucked churches with women ministers and homosexual marriage, whose faults come from being compromised to modernity, rather than being loyal to the Christian scripture and the Christian tradition. Sola Scripture was an error, to be honest. I understand if this is too long didn't read, and I apologize for dropping this large post into your schedule. But I've come to see this anti-Christian fake pagan movement as a redoubt for degenerate, nihilist, negativity-driven people within the milieu of anti-left, anti-degeneracy, pro-white people, much the same way the homosexual natural aristocracy functions as its own in-group clique, tacking degenerate things onto what ought to be a wholesome movement for preserving and restoring what has been good about European society, but which has come under constant attack for centuries now. Sorry again for the length of the post and the probable shitstorm this could bring to your following, but I wanted to get this off my chest and to declare war on this dishonest and destructive death cult, the same way you've shown your battle with the cults of sexual perversion dominating society. Thanks and good luck in all your endeavors and in your personal life. Well, thank you very much for the post, and I do not have a whole lot to add. People know where I stand, what I believe in, what I place my faith in. You seem to be more invested in whatever this movement is than I ever was. I have a lot of friends in it, so, that's how my association with it goes. But it bothers me because a lot of people, they're pro-white. Okay, great. Preserve European nations, preserve European culture, great. But like I said, people are extreme. They'll take anything to an extreme conclusion. Some more than others, but it'll get there. It'll get to a point where you can easily consider it extreme. And a lot of these pro-white, pro-Europe people, they get to the point where they start believing in the divinity and infallibility of their own race. And when confronted with very obvious realities that it is not, they start blaming everything else except for who is actually to blame. They'll blame everybody but themselves. And look, there's nothing wrong with loving your ancestors and, wanting to respect them. Look, we put up gravestones. There's nothing wrong with that. But turning those gravestones into false idols, there is something wrong with that. Of course, you forgive your ancestors for their wrongdoings, but you don't worship that which requires your forgiveness. You forgive the imperfect. You don't worship it. And that's all I'm going to say. Next. And I'm going to have to start taking some sips of water as I record. I don't typically like to do it, but I'm feeling a little dry right now. Okay. Next. Common Filth, I am an American living in Ireland for the past 5 years. I was introduced to your videos by my boyfriend, starting with the Vines. I have caught up by watching all your videos and you are great. I do have a question. In 2015, the Irish people voted yes for gay marriage. Thankfully, my boyfriend didn't, but I want to know your opinion on what could make people think this is okay. How does it make you feel to know that an entire country voted yes for gay marriage? Thanks for everything you do. Lately, I've been pondering the spirit of a collective of people, and whether or not there's a spiritual aspect to race. Most people think it's entirely genetic, or even worse, it's socially constructed. I don't believe in any of those extremes. Of course, it's genetic. Of course, there's a part of it that's genetic, but genetics inform impulse, and impulses change over time. They become redirected as society changes, as society develops or regresses, as it were. And I thought back to a video by Brother Nathaniel, who does YouTube videos. He's a Christian, and he's an ethnic Jew, and he has videos on why he left Judaism. And one part in one of his videos about why he left Judaism, he talked about walking into a synagogue and just smelling death, the scent of death. And he realized that Judaism, it's a dead religion. And then in another video, he said that Jews primarily see themselves as a race, not a religion. And I'll take his word for it. He would know better than I would, having grown up in that environment. But it got me to thinking, if all of these things that we say about Jews, if it's true, Frankfurt School, they own all of the media companies, they're pushing these sorts of agendas. Okay, I could see where people would make that point. I agree with a lot of it. I've said so myself in the first episode of this show. So if the Jewish spirit says sell sexual deviance as a good thing to the Goyim, if that's what they say and that's what their spirit tells them to do, what does it say about our spirit that we buy it? There has to be a relationship between the merchant and the end consumer. There has to be a coincidence there. There has to be a compatibility between the two. And with what you're talking about in Ireland, there certainly is a compatibility. And what does this say about the soul of the Irishman? What does it say about their spirit? Are they a dead race? Is Europeans in general, are they a dead race? I can't say for sure, but let me tell you this. I'll tell you this. In America, people descended from Irish stock or not, I see nothing in their eyes. I see no soul. I see no drive, no will to live. I see sheep. Not like you sheep will do. Like I've said this on another show of mine. I've said that you shouldn't hold sheep in contempt. But that's what I see. And not only that, they're sheep too stubborn to follow a worthy shepherd. So, that's all. I'll leave the rest to the imagination, but thank you for the question. Hi, Common Filth, long-time listener, first-time commenter. Love your show, and it's been helping me get over my own personal issues for a while. I know you've been talking about this weeb nonsense for the past few shows. I'm not here to defend it, but I'm glad to be escaping it, actually. But there's one show that I finished recently that's also helped me get past that phase. Have you heard of the anime Welcome to the NHK? Basically, it's about your average NEET trying to escape his pitiful, shut-in life. He barely has any social skills. He has barely any social skills, rather, and has to get past vices like porn and video game addiction if he wants to make something of himself. Although there are some lighthearted moments, it's mostly depressing, cringe-inducing, and all too familiar for some people who watch it. I think you liked older, non-degenerate, for lack of a better phrase, pandering anime, and while this show could be more condemning of this lifestyle, it does a very good job at showing what lies ahead for those who give up on reality. Anyway, thanks for everything you do. I know that some people seem to almost worship you, but maybe from their perspective, you're the only voice of reason they could have listened to in a while. Keep on fighting the decadence. Well, I haven't seen examples of outright worship. I warn people against seeing me as some messianic figure. I'm not a prophet, not a god. I think that's the third week in a row I've said this and have had the opportunity to say it. But the way that some people, for lack of a better word, attack me, it leads me to believe that they did view me as some false god, and that they felt some betrayal over the fact that I said something they thought I shouldn't say, which is sick. And I do mean sick. I mean diseased. I mean ill. And they're in my prayers, but I'm not trying to pave a new path and say, hey, everybody follow me. I'm this cult leader. No. That's wrong. But maybe you're right. Maybe a lot of people they don't have a whole lot else going on. And I really wish that wasn't the case. But regarding the anime thing, we're talking about a piece of media and unintentional glorification of, let's say, the NEET life. Collecting a large number of eyeballs, ear holes, minds, that's the primary goal of the entertainment industry. Even if the author of a piece of media like the one you're talking about here isn't connected to the entertainment industry, their goal is to expose their message to as many people as possible. It's easy enough to attract these eyes, ears, minds, whatever you want to call it, to a product, but keeping them requires a level of expertise in entertaining people. You got to be entertaining if you want to keep them, right? So any author must, of any piece of consumer media, whether it's audio, video, what I do here, or literary, magazines, whatever it is, must appeal to the sensibilities of the audience. The author must appeal to the sensibilities of the audience either through creating such a sensibility or appealing to their previously formed biases. Thus, a consumer's creative environment, it internalizes how something is said, rather than what is actually said. For example, let's say somebody whose show pertains to the subject of unemployed hermits. They intend to portray such a lifestyle as unfavorable. This intention, in order for it to be fully understood and internalized by the audience, the show must also have an element to it that is unfavorable. It has to be aesthetically assaulting, terrorizing, nightmarish, icky, filthy. But because entertainment requires that the eyes, the minds, be fixated upon its product, what results is a fetishization and, I guess, romanticization of the lifestyle. A fan of a piece of media might say something similar to, I like this show about X. All right? They'll say that. They'll say, I like this show about this subject here. What people like about a show or a movie or whatever is enabled by a given subject. And I see a lot of this in my own work. I make jokes out of things like pause loads and med-resistant AIDS. I hear that all the time, and I don't really have a problem with it. But people fixate on that because I make it aesthetically favorable, because it's funny, it's goofy, whatever. Lots of people fixate on these jokes made possible by the ugly, 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 ugly things that natural aristocrats do. And these people feel betrayed by me because I recognize that this behavior that makes this joke possible, I recognize it as a diseased gross thing. Most people don't want to directly confront it. They just want to joke about it. I want to joke about it. Because joking is a coping mechanism. But you got to break that spell. You got to break that spell that humor creates. We can joke about the fact that a lot of people out there want to get HIV on purpose. But we have to also address what leads up to that. And what leads up to that, unfortunately, is what so many young people bow before. What they view as really good and great and beyond reproach. I have to break the spell that I myself created. They don't want me to believe anything or justify my beliefs with very legitimate reasoning. And there are very legitimate reasons to oppose this kind of stuff. They want me to render dysfunction into that which is aesthetically comfortable. Pause loads, med resistant, AIDS, haha, funny, haha. That which is safe to ridicule in a humorous way. A more widespread example of this is the anti-feminist stuff. They have no problems with the aesthetics of early feminism because they can read about that through the sanitized lens of a history book, or a history class, or some friendly teacher telling it to them. So what I'm saying is that you can joke about stuff, but at some point you have to lift away the innuendo and say what you actually mean. Mean what you say what you mean, whatever. So, thanks for the question. Next. Good show last Tuesday about puppy play. I don't think these people have ever met a dog. They put on dog masks, but they never do anything productive like herd sheep. They don't help blind people walk to the supermarket. They don't risk their lives and hunt and provide families with food. None of these people cramming tail-shaped dildos in their asses volunteer at airports to make sure explosives and narcotics stay off planes. They look at these animals that have provided 40,000 years of selfless service to mankind and only see opportunities for membrane friction and mucus squirting. This is a great point that highlights the psychosis of these people. They're only concerned with, how do they make me feel? Not, this creature has a great amount of humanity. They've been serving us, like you said, selflessly serving us for generations. They're a wonderfully compatible creature with humanity. There's a reason why we've kept dogs around for so long, and it has nothing to do with, they're always happy to see you, and you can't get it from anything else in this world. And it's got nothing to do with tail-shaped, I don't even want to repeat it. Ridiculous. Oh, man. But, yeah, good comment. Next, hey CF, a bit of a petty question, but what is your favorite drink besides Gatorade, as it's a human right? I like lemonade. Lemonade's good. I am also a fan of iced tea as well. That's also good. Next, question CF, what would you do if your YouTube was shut down? You were asked about Davis Arini in an episode a little while back, and regardless of people's opinion on him, or of him, his YouTube was banned. Considering much of your stuff would be a lot more abrasive to certain groups of people than other fringe collectives that have been shut out for less, isn't it only a matter of time before you reach critical mass and the natural reptilian aristocrat flat earth uber merchants with autism push the panic button? Look, it's already written. God knows what's going to happen, and if it happens, I don't know. Maybe I'll just go away quietly and do something else. But actually, as of this recording, Davis Arini's channel was reinstated. So yeah, somebody made a mistake there, and now he's back. So that's good. And the same thing happened to $1 Million Extreme, though. Their channel went away for a much longer time. By the way, hey CF, who's the best member of $1 Million Extreme? Sam, Nick, or Charles? Why do you want to do that? They're all fine people. They're all quality entertainers, great artists. But I will say, Nick has some solid interviewing skills. That Williamsburg video, which is horrible, by the way, not the video itself, but the people featured in it. The guy's got the gift of gab. He's a good talker. He's able to get good conversations out of people. So, next. Could more implausible... I'm getting all these words wrong. My vision's getting blurry. Something about this monitor. Could more implausible conspiracy theories, read not de Jews and respectable pattern recognition, be thought of as coming about as a result of the Western desire to fixate on exceptions and inconsistencies? Is it degenerate to create art or craft things based on a desire to meet your own standards for consumption? How would that relate to your model of the alpha consumer? I don't know about that. I don't know about creating things to meet your own standards for consumption. I mean, I get it. You want to make something that you'd like. I understand that, but I don't know. At a certain point, I don't know what that point would be. It seems almost masturbatory. And like I've said before, I make the kind of show I like. I like a show that's just one guy talking about stuff. And so that's the kind of show that I do. And a lot of people like it, and I'm happy that there's that coincidence. But when I'm talking about the alpha consumer, I'm referring to those people who are, really into zombie stuff and they have their zombie apocalypse plans, or people who have Star Wars weddings, who have weddings at Taco Bell. Fill in the blank. People who merge such a significant part of their lives with disposable consumer goods. And the conspiracy theory thing, yeah, last week I touched on that a little bit when it came to the exceptional incest case that was going on in Germany, and how Sweden was like, we can't criminalize incest and necrophilia because it's disgusting, or whatever it was. It could be considered disgusting, but that's no reason to outlaw it. No, it's sick. It's sick from top to bottom. Illness, everything, from top to bottom is just it needs to be radiated. And I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with wanting to point out exceptions and inconsistencies. The problem is that once you make that the model, the ideal, that's when it becomes a problem, and that's what Europe has done. And how that impulse relates to conspiracy theories, which I think that there are interesting things to be studied within those. How it relates to conspiracy theories, I'm not entirely sure. I could not give a definitive answer for that. Next. Hello, CF, loved the show. Thank you. After catching up with all these CF radios, I wonder one thing. Why don't you become a monk? Get rid of all earthly things and away from the pause-ridden cesspool called humanity. Because I think there are a lot of people out there like me that are in the same situation that I was, like I said, years ago. All this stuff still goes on, and it's going to happen whether or not I'm here to observe it. There needs to be somebody giving out a warning against all these terrible earthly things that so many people view as virtuous, as good. And I think I'm good at creating monologues which serve as an opposite to all of that. An opposite that needs to exist. Because too many people are more than happy to compromise. Way too happy to compromise with worldly filth. And accept it into their good graces and say, well, they help us, blah, blah, blah. They don't. They might help you to get your cummies, but they won't help you get anywhere that's good, that's decent. People are too happy to compromise. Somebody needs to put their foot down and say, no, we will not give in to worldly things, and rationalize it as, well, that's okay. People are far too good at adjusting to garbage. People sleep on a crappy bed that makes their back hurt. All of a sudden, their body adjusts to it. It's the same idea, except on a spiritual level. You become accustomed to the sin that defines your situation, that comes to define you. People are way too willing to adjust, too willing to compromise, and from a monastery, I don't think I could provide that counter. So, for as long as I am allowed to do this, I'll do it. Next, do you have a favorite Christian song? Ave Maria will always take the cake for me. Yeah, I'm not, I need to get more into hymns. It's something I don't have much exposure to, unfortunately. But yeah, Ave Maria is very beautiful. I am familiar with that. But to name a favorite, I'm not good with that. Favorites always change, you know. Next. Hey, CF, I was reading through the Ted Kaczynski manifesto, which you've cited as a major inspiration for some of your work. One part stuck out in particular, his principles of history. His first principle is that small changes can only temporarily alter long-term trends. If the changes counter to that trend, its effect will almost always be temporary and history will continue to run its course. Therefore, in order to alter the course of history permanently, revolution, not reform, is needed. In a world becoming increasingly degenerate, what kind of revolution can alter the current trend permanently, assuming it is possible in the first place? Thanks for reading, stay sane. It needs to be a wholesale change in hearts and minds, and souls. They're talking about revolution this, revolution that, and, what he did, I don't agree with. I bet he thought what he was doing was a big deal. Taking people's lives, yeah, that is kind of a big deal, but for you, it's a big deal for you because you will be caught and you will be brought to judgment. You shouldn't do that. The biggest change we can make is in our hearts and in our minds. And letting that inform our dealings with people. That's the only way it's going to change. And it seems like people are, like I said, they're too happy to compromise. Because it's of some short-term benefit to them. Which is not to say that some blows can be struck towards our elites in various ways. Cutting off the flow of cheap immigrant labor would be one way, but they'll find it somewhere else. They'll find a way to work around it. But again, we wouldn't have a problem with our elites if they behaved. If they did the right things for the right reasons. We wouldn't have problems with race relations if people did the right things for the right reasons. Behavior. That's what matters. That is what we are dealing with. Behavior. Behavior. And people's unwillingness to change it. So, thank you for the question. Next. Feeling dry again. Water. Water's also a good drink that doesn't have sugar in it. Sugar's bad for you. Very bad for you. When you're young, you don't really notice because your body can pretty much fight off anything. I think it's people start having a problem with sugar when they get older. I should look more into that. Okay, next. Hey CF, I would like to talk to you on the topic of religion. I don't know if you remember me, but I wrote to you some time ago about me having doubts if I should stay loyal to my country and raise my agnostic family in America. I myself am a pragmatic man who knows and understands the value of spirituality. I, however, find it hard for me to change my opinion on religion, a tool for the uneducated masses to tie them to morals and standards for society's prosperity. I don't view it as truth. I live by God's law, not because I believe, but because I understand the reasons behind them. That being said, one of the reasons I don't view myself religious is because of examples like this. The thou shalt not unlawfully kill, unlawfully as an outside of warfare, capital punishment, and self-defense message has been manipulated into a thou shalt not harm, resulting in our Western world to be filled with both cowards and weaklings. Religion has lost its virility, and therefore has lost its purpose. What would you say to me to restore my faith in religion, or even better, advise what to do in order to restore religion to what it once was? Well, this ties in with what I was saying earlier. Is it religion's fault, or is it the teachings in the devious hands of men, certain men? And let's consider what we view as harm. Let's use some very modern words like homophobia, transphobia. Soon it's going to be zoophilephobia, whatever the word for that is. We view this as harm. And our mothers and fathers and daughters and brothers and sisters, this is what they view as harmful. Harmful. And what exactly are they harming? Feelings? Let me tell you something. Christ didn't give a fuck about feelings. In fact, I'm going to read from King James right now. One second. It's from Matthew 10. we're going to talk about what I'm talking about here. Okay. So this is from Matthew 10. This is from Christ himself. It says this, and then this starts at verse 34. Matthew 10:34. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So are we to put the compromised standards of our siblings, our parents, above the standards of God? I think not. So when people say thou shalt not harm, they're talking about their own standards. They're dubious standards, not God's. And this hypersensitivity to harm, this harm-based morality, I think is a very, very European thing. Far too much empathy. And then the last part of your question here. On a side note, I'd really like to ask you about Christianity and its non-European roots. What's your view on this? Do we need to acknowledge that Christianity is non-European and discard it for a more open version of God? Well, look, European civilization, Western civilization, would not exist without Christianity. And I'd argue that Christianity isn't in its present form, isn't at all. Like I said, like we found out a little bit earlier, like I was reminded about earlier. Most of the churches that belong to the various European states are secularist entities. It's no coincidence that as Christendom, what used to be known as Christendom, gets more secular, it gets worse. Most people who are baptized who belong to the state religions don't actually believe. They just do it because it's a cultural thing. Alright, next. Hey, CF, hope you're doing well. I just have a quick question for you this week. What do you think of going into a career that you're skilled at but is filled with awful degenerates? See, my mind goes to stripping and whoring because of how he started not how he started, just something we talked about in the episode. Wait, we did start with the whoring thing, didn't we? Yeah, I think we did. Regardless, that's what I think of. It's not, do you want to be a cam girl? No, I don't think you do. I'm just being stupid. I've heard you talk about your experiences with making music and how you got out of there because you had to associate with the worst kinds of people. My situation isn't as bad. I'm thinking of switching majors to computer science but can't stand all the Redditors, Fedora fags, MLG types, SJWs, and anti-SJWs that infest this field. Do you think I should just go with what I'm good at even if it means interacting with these people on a daily basis? Thanks for doing your show and God bless. Well, with corporate diversity initiatives, that's what a corporation really values is diversity. I think you're going to find this in pretty much any environment that requires skilled labor. So what I say is this, if you're doing something honest, if you're doing something that requires effort, that requires rigorous effort on your behalf, something that isn't swindling, something that isn't whoring, it's fine. You're going to find degenerates pretty much everywhere you go. So don't worry too much about the people you're going to have to work with. Worry about obtaining a skill, being able to provide for yourself. That is the priority, and you'll have to deal with that stuff down the road. Maybe you won't even have to deal with it at all. Don't count your chickens before they hatch and whatnot. You know, ducks in a row, blah blah blah. Cliche. But thanks for the question. Next. Hey CF, what do you think of women wearing head coverings? Do you think they are not God's will at all, or that they should only wear them in church/buildings in general, but can elsewhere? Or maybe only during prayer, which is questionable given we're supposed to pray without ceasing. Or maybe at all times with only reasonable exceptions being allowed. Showering, exercising at home during sexual encounters with her husband, etc. Yeah, this is a little bit strange for me, to be honest with you. It's not something that I've considered at all. But you took the time to write it, so I'll read it. Whenever I look at a woman wearing a head covering, especially when I see a Christian woman wearing them for the right reasons, assuming the rest of her clothing is godly as well, they become so much more beautiful and desirable. I see genuine and concentrated purity and meekness. I hope genuinely and lovingly hope that this is some level of importance to you, because I truly feel we need to get our own people to actually act according to God's word, not just stop doing that which harms us. And this is a very controversial thing to Christian women, so I think it needs to be said. Well, yeah, absolutely. Modesty is key. People are very, very, very immodest, and that's a problem. How many girls do you see on YouTube making videos of dyeing their armpit hair pink, dyeing their hair pink, all these terrible colors? Colors that only happen in birds, maybe. So yeah, if a girl has green hair, yeah, she should cover that shit up. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I'll meet you halfway there. To get an idea of how controversial it is, you don't even have to ask a real woman. Just imagine how they'd react if you weren't married to them and you were telling them to wear one. And take a note of how basically no Christian churches even suggest to their female official members or the randoms to wear head coverings. And even worse, how few pastors' wives wear them. I'm guilty of my own sins, but they are pastors, and they are too afraid to tell their wives what to wear. They don't have control over their own household. Well, if their wives are dressed immodestly, then I guess that would be a problem, but I don't know. I don't think that head covering is a prerequisite to modesty. I mean, maybe I'm wrong here, but, it's just something I've never been filled with sinful desire at seeing a woman's hair. I'm saying. With that said, my mind won't be changed unless I receive large amounts of proof to otherwise. I believe women are to wear them at all reasonable times, as all Christians are to pray without ceasing. Men likewise should not wear hats during prayer, meaning not often at all, because it's the reverse for us. Furthermore, the fact that they become visibly more desirable to me, and not even fully due to prettiness, is evidence to me that the Spirit of God blesses those who do so. Maybe I'm full of crap, but I'm fully convinced. Look, I don't know. I've never heard this perspective before, to be honest with you. So it's completely foreign to me. But thanks for taking the time. Thanks for taking the time to write to me. Next. Okay, so is global warming real or not? I found some research papers saying it's a problem, others saying that it is a farce. I believe it's bullshit. And I'll tell you why. In California, we're having this massive drought. Oh my god, drought. Water restrictions this, water restrictions that. Okay, we have El Nino now. It's been raining all the damn time. And up in the Sierras, I believe, some ski resorts are saying that they have so much snow that there will be skiing up until July 4th. America's birthday. Skiing on the 4th of July. Can you imagine? And moreover, Al Gore said that we'd be underwater in 10 years. New York would be underwater. It's been 10 years. New York's still there. It's not underwater. In fact, I wish it was. People say they wish California would get nuked. I wish that sometimes too. Okay? And so I think it's fair that I wish New York would fall into the ocean. New York City would fall into the ocean. So global warming, I believe, is a scam to sell carbon credits, to make something out of nothing. More middlemen, basically. It's all a big scam for people that never learned how to do anything in their lives other than meddle and steal. Thieves, all of them. Next. And this is going to be another 2-hour episode? Probably not. I know, there's something shocking about seeing the 2-hour episode in your subscriptions list, but I don't know if I could pull that off every week. I mean, I've had this sudden burst of energy, but I feel it's gonna run out a little bit too soon here. But it's a pretty solid length episode we have going on right now. I don't think anybody's gonna complain that this one's too short. Next. Hey CF, I don't know if you'll read this comment, but I recently came across something. Oh, I'm reading it now. I decided to listen to some music from my younger days. I put on some stuff from a guy called John Rubin, which I highly recommend as an artist. It's not Vaporwave, but this guy is a devout Christian and is a pretty good rapper. Anyway, I was listening to one of his songs called Cooperate, which I'll link here. I think this song perfectly describes the SJW/pause/fuck you mom dad, etc. culture, especially in the first verse. For those listening or those too lazy, the first verse goes. This dude took pride in his cause every day, put on his costume which defined who he was. He said he didn't care, he liked being unique, accused the rest of the world of being a bunch of sheep, lived his life going against the grain, spent all of his time with those who felt the same, hit his mid-20s and still nothing's changed except his voice who chose to grow with age. Now he's looking for friends with the same behavior. He hangs out on campus with a bunch of teenagers. He's punk rock, he's hip hop, he's everything the system's not, and he likes it that way. He likes being on the defense. He likes having something to fight against. He likes calling himself a revolutionist. I'm sorry, but you have an identity crisis. This, I feel, describes the whole LGBTQ, AKLMNOP, and other SJW type movements. It's basically it's a bunch of basically children fighting for nothing, pausing themselves for no good reason, pressuring and even forcing children to change genders for some twisted sense of doing a good. They don't do it for betterment or making the world any better. It's a selfish desire to do anything to feel like you're part of something that matters. Sure, it makes me mad that this happens, but I also feel kind of sorry for these people. Yeah, they are wasting their lives, but they're taking other people with them. They're convincing children that what they're doing is virtuous. And all these kids sitting in front of their webcams, 10 things you shouldn't say to a genderqueer person. It's even sadder that these people wouldn't and won't listen to people like you or I. We don't say what we say because we want to make them mad, but because we want them to keep from a life of regret and want. Thanks and God bless, CF. There's not much more I can add to that. Very good lyrics there, and very good insight all around. So thank you for sending that to me. I'll check out the YouTube link in a minute here. All right, let's do some emails, and we'll see how far we get. And here we go. I originally found your channel through Tumblristas and later began listening to your show, and I very much enjoy listening to it. It makes the 5:30 a.m. wake up on a Wednesday morning much more enjoyable as I finish my notes from my lectures. Your moral standpoint on issues is incredibly thought-provoking, and I almost entirely agree with your views. Recently started studying history and international relations at university in the UK, a topic I very much enjoy. However, I found the laissez-faire attitude to society and morality in the students quite overwhelming. I was brought up a Muslim and was never really exposed to this kind of attitude. Nonetheless, over the first semester, I began to become just like them in some ways. I stopped going to mosque on Fridays. I destroyed my sleeping pattern, stopped going to lectures, and focusing on video games more than studying, with the simple reasoning of not having time. By the end of the semester, I was terrified of what I had become. Around this time, I began listening to your show, and your views had a direct response on me. I realized my wrongdoings and worked to fix them to the best of my ability. I began going to mosque again. I now go every Friday without fail. Fixed my sleeping pattern and focusing more on my work and studies. I thought you would be interested in this, as I know you are a strong Christian. Yet you pushed me back to my own faith of Islam. I believe we share many ideas since both of our faiths stem from the same root of Abraham. Another point I would like to make is that you hate teachers with quite a passion, yet since a young age I have wanted to teach specifically history. A quote I heard as a young child was, "If we do not learn the mistakes of the past, we are doomed to repeat them." And to this day, it resonates with me at a deep level. Time and time again, history has repeated itself, and that is one reason why I want to teach history. I feel it is my duty to pass on the knowledge and morality beliefs that I hold to that of the next generation, to ensure that society does not tumble down this progressive, morally defunct, and downright terrifying road to destruction. I'd be interested to hear your views. Keep fighting the good fight. Thank you for the email, and I'm not sure how far along in the series you are. I do recommend that people, they listen to the latest to the earliest. I say this a lot, but it, once again, bears repeating. I've received emails from teachers before explaining their views, and I wish there were more teachers like them, because they seem to be more interested in actually teaching, actually passing on objective, correct information to their students, and not propaganda. Most teachers here in America, I mean, I came across them, with less frequency. People did their job honestly, the professors I had in college. But as I got further down the line, just more and more of these horrible, horrible people kept getting in my path. I had to take their classes, and it was terrible. But I do get messages from people who do their job honestly and do it well, and I wish there were more people like them. Like I think it was last week or the week before, I got an email from a student who actually had a good teacher, and but for every example of that, I get an example of teachers enabling the stupid notions and opinions of their students. I have found videos in the past of guest lecturers in high school classrooms talking about how gender's a spectrum and there's more than two genders and all of this other nonsense. So it's a highly liberal profession. It's a highly left-wing profession, and I understand why, because a lot of teaching jobs are government jobs, so their salaries are enabled by the taxpayer. But for too many teachers, that's not good enough just to have a government job. No, they also have to spread leftist social propaganda. They are preying on kids who most likely don't have a very good home life. They don't have good parents at home. And I think I know what you're referencing when you're talking about what you began your paragraph with about wanting to be a teacher. I have very specific personality types in mind when I talk about people like that. I've encountered them a little too often in my life. These young people that are not very interested in living life. They want to go to school just to teach a subject, and they don't have a whole lot of wisdom. They don't have a whole lot of life experience, and I'm sitting there wondering why. Why, for what noble purpose do you want to teach? And I absolutely agree. There is a value in knowing history and knowing what to avoid. But you can show people patterns of behavior that civilizations have expressed throughout time. But unfortunately, you'll find that facts don't matter so much as falling in line with prevailing notions and attitudes. And the immediate gratification and validation that social media provides is making that worse. For example, people not knowing their history. And it's not exactly distant history. We're talking about the fall of the Soviet Union, the fall of communism. It's funny, we got rid of economic communism, but we're all about the cultural communism. How many people want to vote for Bernie Sanders, who is a literal communist? Yet all these young people love him and want that $15 an hour minimum wage and want that free college. It's absurd. So some people can learn their history and some people can learn the lessons that history tells us, but we have a very large population that have escaped those teachings. But with all that being said, thank you very much for the email. Next. If it'll load. I don't have any questions since life is pretty great for me at the moment. I found some articles you might find interesting. This one says, Aristotle's telegony has merit. Previous male partners can influence other men's offspring. Gasp, those evil cishet Christian bigots were right. Monogamy is the best way to go. Gasp, I'm so shocked. Genetics, that's slut shaming. Mother Nature is a slut shamer. Scientists have discovered a new form of non-genetic inheritance, showing Greek philosopher Aristotle's hypothesis that offspring can resemble a mother's previous sexual partner has some merit. Yeah, I did hear something about that even before this, that women absorb the DNA of sex partners. That's crazy. And this one. The Moscow Times. Russian school children forced to watch video recommending men marry virgins. Forced. How many American kids are forced to watch documentaries about transsexuals and other things? Oh, but that's an honor and a privilege to be forced to watch those, right? It's from the MoscowTimes.com. 8th graders in a secondary school in the Kuban region. I don't know. In southern Russia were shown a 3-minute video which claimed that the West is seeking to destroy Russian society by depraving its women. Correct. The Meduza news agency reported Thursday, citing the sister of one of the students. The video accuses the United States of propagating feminist and gay propaganda. Correct. To corrupt Russian children. Correct. Stating that its influence is the main reason Russians are becoming sexually active at a younger age. The video urges young Russian men to avoid relationships with women who have already had sexual experience, presenting the theory of telegeny as scientific fact. Well, guess what? It is! It is fact. We're going to go back to that other article on ibtimes.co.uk. I'll try to remember to include all this stuff in the description, but no guarantees. The idea of telegeny, the once-held theory that a male can leave a mark on his mate's body that influences her offspring with a different male, dates back to ancient Greek times and was popular as a scientific theory in the 1800s. Although the theory was discredited in the early 1900s with the advent of genetics and is classed as superstition, researchers have now shown for the first time that the hypothesis has merit in flies. To test the idea of telegeny, Australia, okay, blah, blah, blah. We know it's true. It's like, look, when a man climaxes inside of a woman, where is it going? Where is it going? I mean, yes, some of it might fall out, fine. But where else is it going? It's getting absorbed. It's not that difficult or unreasonable to draw those kind of conclusions. All right, let's do another. Headphones are getting twisted here. I have in the past been a libertarian, much like you. I believed in the two consenting adults argument for the longest time. I still held some semblance of this belief a few days ago. So I forced myself down the rabbit hole of Tumblr. Yeah, it's quite a trip, isn't it? I went through all the bug-chasing HIV, pause mine egg hole slamming before having gay anal pause sex tags. Just everything I couldn't imagine was real. I've seen many things on the internet, but this is the worst by far. Now everybody pay attention to this part. The stunning part to me is this. All of these blogs are getting 50,000 to 60,000 notes per hour, per post. Not per hour. Per post, it's not that bad. Per post on average. Consider that this is only one tag on one website and that gay males make up less than 5% of the population. Yeah, I'm, the first segment of Tumblr Used to Draw Volume 4 explores this very subject and exposes just how prevalent it is. This has finally convinced me that this isn't just a small subculture within gay culture. Even with the lowest estimates possible, that puts 1 in 300 homosexual males as bug chasers. That's a stunningly high number. This wouldn't be so shocking if not for what the Wikipedia page says about bug chasing, that it is a myth. Yeah, I believe the term they use is sexual urban legend. And exists only in absolute minute numbers. If that were true, why are these posts getting at least 50,000 likes after being up for only days? Yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's a documentary on soiledcinema.com, spelled with all S's. There's a movie called Bottom, directed by a guy named Todd Vera, where he follows this guy, this bug chasing guy. He talks about, oh, I want to get the gift, blah, blah, blah. I guess the climax of the movie is he wants to have a 50 load weekend, as in 50 different guys doing what he does with them, or fucking whatever. I don't even want to say it. You can, I forget which episode it's in, it's somewhere, but you can go on their website, the one that I just mentioned, to read it. 50 guys. 50 guys in one weekend. They're literally lined up outside of his apartment to pause his neg hole, and people say, it's just a friends thing. Oh, the pause grandpas are not real. It's like 0.11 or 0.0001%. This is what people say to me. This is what people have said to me directly. And you've seen evidence to the contrary. I've seen evidence to the contrary. So whenever anybody says that to you, that this is just a fringe thing, assume that they're a part of it, or that they enable it, or that they just don't want anything bad being said about our natural aristocracy. Would wives be comfortable with their husbands keeping these kinds of people as company? What would that say about your husband if you're a wife and your man has a bunch of gay friends? What does that say about him? Does that make you comfortable? Or would you, as a wife, think to yourself, something's not right there. I think I made a mistake. And another thing I want to add, HIV infection rates are declining in every single population other than men who have sex with men. What does that say? We know what it says. So peel your eyes away from the spreadsheet, you fucking nerd, and use your intuition. What little of it you have left. No, the intuition went out when you decided to gargle a bunch of cum, and now your endocrine system is so far gone that you aren't even human anymore. All right, next. Hi, hello, Common Filth. I'll keep it short since you have a lot of emails to get to. I'd first like to thank the guy in the last episode who recommended Merchants of Cool and Generation Like. Merchants of Cool was a very good documentary about the early 2000s advertising machine. I'd like to reiterate that everyone should watch both documentaries. I'm just starting to watch the latter, but I shudder to think how different it will be than the former. I already can see the Apple computers and shallow people chasing after virtual warm fuzzies to fill the void. I'd recommend that you give both of them a watch. A review would make for an interesting CF Extra episode. Yeah, I'll look into that. I might do that if it inspires. I've noticed that you're becoming a better orator as time goes on. In episode 78, I noticed that you had a greatly increased vocal range, and it made the episode a joy to listen to. Your Microsoft Sam voice is great and all, but the increased range expresses more emotion. Yep, I'm learning to cut loose a little bit more. My Microsoft Sam voice. No, that's the Moon Man voice. Get it right. Have you ever considered writing a short synopsis of your episodes or annotating them? You put out a prolific amount of content, and sometimes it can be hard to pinpoint a specific segment while searching through hour-long shows. Thanks, CF. Keep up the good work. Yeah, I would do that if I was doing the one show a week thing again, but as soon as I'm done with this, I'm on to Tumblristas because, I only have 2 days between, the upload. Oh, I usually finish these by Monday, so I guess I have like 2 or 3 full days to finish the Tumblristas episode, but, maybe I could find the time to do that. It's just, I think you're one of the only ones that have demanded it. There's been a couple of others that have thought about it, but, I don't... I mean, every show kind of has a theme, but I jump from topic to topic. There's usually not too much of a common thread that runs through the episodes, but I get it. A list of topics of what I've talked about would be convenient. So, suggestion noted. Thank you for the email. And I'm glad that somebody notices that I am speaking with more feeling. Probably because I don't care as much anymore of when it comes to how I come off. I used to think like, I'm gonna be professional, real professional, but I'm just like, that's not how I talk to people usually. You gotta put some oomph behind your words, for lack of a better word. And there's another part to this email actually. Forgot one thing. Have you thought of putting your radio episodes onto Bandcamp as well as YouTube? It's easier to grab a MP3 than to watch the video for those with intermittent connections. I would, but with Bandcamp, they only allow you so many free downloads. Like, they give you more once you reach a certain sales threshold, but if I released all of my shows onto Bandcamp, I like to keep YouTube and the Bandcamp thing separate, the only exception being Tumblrista's episode 17. So, I would, but the fact that I want to keep them separate and the fact that I only have so many free downloads to give away, that gets in the way. What I do recommend is using a website like clipconverter.cc. I think they're still around, and there are a bunch of different video download plugins on web browsers, and I use one. I forget the name of it. Maybe I'll get it to you later. I don't feel like opening Firefox right now and causing some RAM issues here. I have the plugin on my laptop, which I am using to record, but not on my desktop, which I am using to read emails. But regardless, I do recommend some browser plugin or a video converting website if you want to take my shows offline. And with that being said, I'm starting to feel a weird thing where I'm talking from. It's not like my throat, it's lower than that. It's like where the stomach and the whatever this is meet. I don't know my anatomy too well. Or maybe I'm just too tired. I don't know. But yeah, I do have more emails. I'll get to these at a later date, and we're just short of 3 straight episodes of 2 hours. Oh well, no big deal. It's still plenty of show, and I hope you all enjoyed it. So, you all be good to each other, take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you later.
Grown, ain't I? The skinny nigga with the fro to the slightly bigger nigga who's a killer with the flow. Went from YouTube beats and SoundCloud, nigga. The only difference now is that I found Twitter. Fuck it, it's struggle rap, man. They never see the trouble that I'm going through. The way I sing, they think I live in bubble wrap. Fuck all that, even though I'm on some poppin' shit. With my niggas as my witness, I'm a nigga who can spit. Don't believe me? Overlooking my potential, I'm that poet to a phone, that poet was to a pencil. My mental is similar to that of a lion, and I'm the king of